Technology is impacting the financial sector profoundly. In Switzerland, there are over 300 fintech startups and companies, but only a handful with a FINMA license. Alpian is in the application process and planning to launch its services this year. To find out more about Alpian's mission and vision, I'm now joined by Schuyler Weiss, CEO of the Swiss FinTech. Hi, Schuyler.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you for having me.
What's the aim of Alpian and why are you different from other banks, fintechs, and wealth managers?
Sure. So when we started Alpian, I think the goal was really to figure out how can we combine the expertise of Swiss banking with the growing trend of digital banking. And what we found is that there's a portion of the market, what we call the mass affluent, which is not well served. They require both the ease, simplicity, and functionality of retail banking, but they also are looking for ways to grow their wealth, right, and actually achieve what we call wealth beyond money. And so at Alpian, what we do is we bring in the simplicity of your everyday bank, and we combine it with the ability to grow wealth, and it's really tailored for what the affluent clients are looking for.
That sounds quite abstract still to me. So I mentioned that you're applying for the FINMA license. Once you have it, what services can the clients then access?
Once we have the FINMA license, we plan to go live quickly after, and we'll offer things like a debit card, international payments, the ability to exchange between different currencies. At the same time, we will also offer 3 different investment mandates where people will be able to choose between, I want to invest myself, I want somebody to help me invest, or I want somebody to invest for me. And when I say somebody to invest for you, we're talking about private banking investment experts. And so this is all complemented by our client success team, our advisors that we've hired at Alpian, who will guide you on your journey of not only how do I manage the money I have, but how do I grow it, and how do I figure out here's where I want to go, and how do I get between where I am and how I want to go. So we actually provide the private bankers who are going to help guide along that journey.
And I assume that, of course, you did some research to figure out where the needs are of your clients or of your future clients. So what did the research tell you, and what kind of gap are you trying to fill?
So one of the very first things we did when we set out to build Alpian was to understand what do people want. Because at the end of the day, Alpian is razor focused on serving the needs of its future clients. We found a couple of interesting things, but one thing was that people today, a lot of people, when you ask them, what more do you want from your bank? They say, nothing. My bank is suitable as is. But then you start to ask them about other things that banks could do but don't do today. And we found that they want these things, they just don't know it's possible. For a client who has 200,000 in their entire net worth, to be able to go and speak with a person, right, they're thinking, this is just not possible for me, right? Where I'm speaking with an experienced private banker who's helping me and getting to know me and helping me on my journey. And this is something that people didn't think was possible, and we asked them, is this something that could appeal to you? A person to guide you on that journey of wealth beyond money. And what we found is that when asked, they loved the idea, but they just didn't think that they could possibly have it.
Do you think that millennials, of course, I mentioned technology is disrupting the financial sector, and I assume not just the technology, but also your future clients, millennials, how will they impact the sector?
Sure. I think that one of the big things that we focus on at Alpian is not just do we have all of the banking fundamentals in place. That's the base. That needs to be there. But then how do you take those banking fundamentals, expand them, and make it very easy for the client to use, right? And I think that what the younger generations have shown is that ease of use, the use of technology, the precedent set by companies, other technology companies, needs to carry over into banking. When you use a bank, it needs to be very easy, very intuitive, very simple to use. We really focus on how do we create the best user experience, the best client experience, and that goes everywhere from the security of our offering to the simplicity of our offering, and how simple it is to actually complete certain actions within our ecosystem.
And that's through an app. It
is through an app, yes, through a mobile application.
And it should be joyful, I even think about the gamification aspect.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, when I think about joy in banking, normally banking causes a lot of stress.
Yeah.
When people think about banking, they're thinking about like, how much money do I have? How do I pay my bills? That usually causes a lot of stress. And I think that at Alpian, we're trying to turn that equation around where instead of causing stress, how do you empower your clients? How do you get them to think, what more can I do with the money I have? Not, will my money last till tomorrow? When can I retire? It's, can I retire earlier, right? Can I buy a bigger house? How can I empower the client to think beyond the stresses of money? Now, there will always be stresses of money, but this is something that, when we think about it, I think one of the big things that we do is education, right? Education, and we actually launched a platform called iVest, which where our intention is not just to provide the services, but also provide the education to go along with the services to help them achieve what they want in life. Our idea of wealth beyond money.
I was just going to ask you about education, because investing requires so much know-how as well, and how you were going to invest in education, or are you even educating your clients? But you seem to be.
Yeah, I think that, look, different people have different amounts of time, different wants, different needs. Some people want to be completely educated. Some people want to delegate the responsibility. At Alpian, we feel it's our responsibility to educate our client on everything that's happening. But in the case where they want guidance, or they want somebody who's a professional to be making that decision, we also offer those opportunities as well. So in conjunction with Rail, we're actually offering a discretionary management service where your money will be invested by the professional team at Rail, the portfolio management team at Rail. But again, that's for people who don't have the time to educate themselves. They're busy with their day-to-day. For the people who want the education on our iVest platform, and throughout everything we do, we're really trying to make things very simple, very intuitive, so that they can understand the impact of every decision they take, and that they can understand that investing is about empowering people if it's done in the correct way. And that's very important for us.
And can you offer those services with attractive fees?
Yes, this is something where I think,
how?
Yeah, when we started with a blank sheet of paper in the beginning, we didn't start with what are the fees we should charge. We started with how do we create the best experience for our clients? And so then we mapped that out, and we thought, okay, for our mass affluent clients, based off the research we have and the convictions that we have, here's what we want to build. And then we started to build that, and we worked backwards, and we thought, okay, how can we minimize the fees, right? How can we make the fees as low as possible so that the value the client gets is maximized, and the cost for that value is as low as possible. Now, we're not a free service, and we're not the lowest fee company in the world, but for the fees that we charge, the value is going to be extraordinary. And so this is really the way that we think about it. Now, technology has obviously allowed us to condense the fees to a certain extent, and we have this hybrid system where we combine human intelligence with the best of technology, and this really, the combination allows us to keep our costs low as a company, but also offer a personalized human touch for each of our future clients.
Okay. Then you were able, or you and your team, to raise almost 30 million Swiss francs in the Series A and Series B funding. So congratulations to that.
Thank you.
What's your approach to building and launching then Alpian now?
Yeah. So I think, one of the first steps that we took once we completed the Series B was to send to FINMA, the Swiss regulator, our completion of the round. And we're working with them to try and figure out what's the appropriate steps in order for us to be granted a license. We then need to use the funding to launch our services and continue to develop our product functionalities and our technologies in order to ensure that every client not only has the best experience, but that it's completely secure and it's completely compliant with Swiss banking. And so the funding is really, it's going to take us to the point where we will go into the market and we will have such a solid foundation where when the client is interacting with Alpian, our goal is to make it so that they feel as if we've been a bank for forever, and it's not something that's new. But the way that we do banking is totally different.
What is your estimation? When are you launching? What's the schedule?
Where we'd like to go live is in the third quarter of this year. But again, that's something that FINMA will ultimately decide. And we're going through that process and trying to make sure that, that we demonstrate that every I has been dotted and every T has been crossed, because that's what it takes to become a licensed Swiss bank.
Then Alpian was also incubated by the Swiss banking group Rail & C. And how has this helped you meet your potential?
Rail has really helped paint that picture of what are the steps that you need to take. Now, we're able to use the experience and knowledge of Rail to really escalate. At the same time, the partners of Rail have really been such a massive. They've been all massive supporters of Alpian and have really pushed for us to go that next level.
Then Rail itself, Intesa Sanpaolo Private Banking actually recently acquired a majority stake in the Rail Group. How will that investment influence Alpian or help you in the business?
Alpian is self-governed, right? It's independent governance. With that said, there are still strategic partnerships that exist between Alpian and Rail, and we're very close with Rail, but we run ourselves independently. Now, with Intesa Sanpaolo, I mean, this is such a well-reputed bank in the market and one of the largest in Europe. There are possibilities for how we can partner together, and we're currently exploring what are those opportunities and are they a fit for Alpian and Intesa.
Okay. Then I guess your next milestone would be a FINMA license. What else is in the pipeline?
We're currently in the process of really building out our brand, finding ambassadors who are great fits for our brand and can help share who Alpian is with the world. We're continuing to build out our technology. Every week, every day, every hour, our technology gets better and better and better. So for the rest of time, we will always invest in the areas that differentiate for the client, and technology is one of them. And so we're continuing to invest in our technology. At the same time, we are actually becoming an issuing banking partner of Visa. These are the kinds of milestones that make up your company, because if you don't have a critical partner with Visa who's been there with us the entire time, you can't issue a debit card, or you have to issue the debit card through another bank. And so Visa has been by our side the entire time, really helping us implement not just a debit card program, but a world-class debit card program that I think our clients will ultimately love once we get it into their hands.
And one of the challenges of financial service or financial industry is also the onboarding of clients, anti-money laundering, KYC, all of those things. What's your approach there to overcome that or to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I think we took very early on the decision to limit our offering to the Swiss population, right? And that's something where many banks, many digital banks, when they start, they try and go everywhere all at once. And I think that that's not the approach we took. And the first reason is because we're really a human-based company, and we provide human-tailored advice. And if you're going to do that, you can't do it for everybody all at once. And if you do, it's not going to be tailored, and it's not going to be great advice. And so with the Swiss population, ultimately, we are aiming to be a Swiss bank, right? And what that means is that we need to prioritize the Swiss population at first. And so we don't have to worry about some of the other restrictions that other banks do, but at the same time, like cross-border rules, right? This is something that we have to take that into account should there ever be a use case that violates cross-border rules. But at the same time, given that we've decided to really focus on the Swiss population so that we can provide the best service, the best value for our clients, we have limited the risk of violating some of the major major faux pas that other banks make.
What about cybersecurity? How do you make sure that, tech, many might think, why should I give my data out?
When we think about security, right, you have to realize that every bank uses technology, right? Now, to the extent of how good their technology is or how bad it is, this is up to each bank. So the premise is that every bank uses technology. Then it's about what are the decisions you take to make it more secure. And what I can say is that Alpian has taken every measure to ensure that every client's data will be secure, that their money will be secure, that their investments will be secure. We've had decisions in the past where we've seen that, okay, Bank X does it this way. They're in complete compliance with the law. Now you can have something above that bank's standard, but it's going to come at a financial cost and a human resources cost. And we took that decision to increase the security because we don't want to be another bank. We say our client wants this level of security, we're going to go above it. And so we will invest to make sure that our clients' data and their funds are secure.
Okay, good. And before we finish up, I have two more questions.
Sure.
Alpian, it reminds me of Alps. Where does the name come from?
Yeah. So this is, this is actually when we were in the beginning, we were thinking about how do we name the company, right? And naming a company is not easy. And we came up with many bad names, but then actually in December of 2019, I was in my hometown in the United States, and I was speaking with my grandfather who grew up in Geneva, and he told me a story that he's told me many times before, which is that when he was in Geneva, he was a pilot here in Geneva. And there was one day where he was flying around and he got lost. And this is 70 years ago. This is a long, long time ago. And there's no GPS. He said there's an air bubble in the compass, so the compass wasn't working. And he's running out of fuel. And so he's running out of fuel. He's flying around, nowhere to go, nowhere to land, and he's in trouble. And then he sees in the distance the mountains, and he starts to fly towards the mountains, and he recognizes that they're the Alps, and he knows which Alps they are. And so he actually used the Alps to say, okay, I know what this mountain is, I know where I am, and therefore I know where I need to go. And so as he tells the story, he ultimately got back to Geneva, and he landed, and the propeller turned off as he landed. Right?
Wow.
And that's, I wouldn't be here today if that weren't the case. But the point is this is what Alpian stands for, right? So beyond anything else, we wanted the name to stand for who is Alpian. And we're really a company that whether you're in your worst times or your best times, we will be by your side to help you from where you are to where you want to go. And that's where the name Alpian came from.
That's wonderful. You want to be a compass then?
We want to be a compass. We want to be a North Star. We want to be a lighthouse. We want to be the Alps. I'm sure it's not just my grandfather who's used the Alps to find their way, right? And that's something that we want to be that guide that helps people in their worst of times or best of times.
Wow, Schuyler, that's an amazing story. And I would suggest let's leave it right there, because if you're interested in Alpian, then go on the iVest platform now to check out more content and, of course, educate yourself about investing.